Shwmae a chroeso I Sgwrs, podlediad Consortiwm Canolbarth y De. Yn y podlediad hwn byddwch chi'n clywed y trafodaethau diweddara am bob math o bethau addysg. Hello and welcome to Sgwrs, the Central South Consortium podcast. In this podcast we'll bring you the very latest discussions on all things education.
Croeso to this podcast by the LLC Welsh and English medium team from the Central South Consortium. My name is mae'r, and I'm joined today by three teachers from Coed Glas Primary School in Cardiff, Charlotte Drew, Peter Thomas, and Rachel Kennard. Shwmae, Charlotte.
Shwmae.
And Shwmae, Pete.
Shwmae.
And Shwmae, Rachel.
Shwmae.
Together, we talk about the way the LLC Welsh and English medium team from the Central South Consortium have supported your school to develop learners' Welsh oracy skills with a focus on effective daily Welsh sessions. But before we go there, how about some introductions?
Hi, I'm Charlotte. I am the Welsh lead here at Coed Glas Primary School, and I also teach Year 5 and 6. We have joint classes this year. With my personal Cymraeg journey, I am a Welsh learner myself. Over the years, I've taken part in the asynchronous CSC learning, working at the intermediate level.
Shwmae, I'm Peter. I am also in part of the Year 5 and 6 team here, and I've been teaching for 5 years. I learned Welsh through English medium school myself in secondary school, and have not used Welsh much since then. So since becoming a teacher, I've been re-teaching myself some Welsh, but also utilising my knowledge from learning other languages. So I speak Spanish and have learned a bit of French and Latin as well previously. So using those to help me teach Welsh in school.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm also one of the teachers in the Year 5-6 team. My Welsh journey has continued from school to doing the 2003-2004 sabbatical, where I hopefully became fluent in speaking Welsh and also learned the importance of how to teach Welsh to children.
Diolch bawb. It's really good to hear that you all have such different backgrounds. And what's good for all our teachers in the audience today to hear is that in all our schools, it's not just the children who are learning, we are all learning as well as teachers, and we are at different stages. And one element of the CSC support is always that we try to aim our support to support all practitioners in school. Charlotte, would you maybe be able to tell us a little bit more about your school in general and why, as a school, you decided to engage with support from the CSC to develop Welsh oracy?
Of course. We currently have 475 pupils on roll here at Coed Glas. We are a 2-3 form entry, which includes our nursery. We have a DHRB, and we've got a newly established SRB as well. Our recent SWAC identified that the majority of staff have entry level or foundation levels of Welsh. And now adding to that, we do have a couple of advanced level teachers and one teacher who's returned from sabbatical as well. The reasons why we decided to engage with CSC for support was that Welsh oracy was identified as a post-inspection priority for us. So in our 2023 inspection, we were given the recommendation to improve pupils' Welsh oracy skills. Following that then, in the academic year of 23-24, Welsh oracy was put onto our SIP, and that's when CSC really stepped in and started to support us. We also had quite a lot of changes in staffing, lots of staff members returning from maternity, members of staff moving year groups as well. Really, COVID had a massive impact on us as well, as I'm sure lots of schools found. During that time, Welsh really wasn't a priority for us, unfortunately. We were focusing really on literacy and mathematical skills, and we couldn't continue with the previous changes that had been put in place prior to COVID. So really, as a staff, we were back to where we had been before, and we were starting again with our Welsh oracy journey.
And that's a very familiar picture that we, as a consortium, hear from many schools, that the dramatic impact that COVID had on schools. needed addressing in time. Obviously, schools had different priorities sometimes following the cyfnod clo, the lockdown. But maybe, Rachel, would you mind sharing a little bit how in your class you felt the lockdown and all the changes in how you could provide for children, how that affected the Welsh in your class?
Well, when we returned back to actually teaching face-to-face with the children, Welsh wasn't seen as being a priority across the school. We needed to concentrate on re-establishing relationships with the children, getting their numeracy and literacy skills back up as well. So other than general incidental Welsh that appeared on posters around the school, there wasn't much desire really to proceed with that journey as it was, because there was things that were far more important at the time.
So we've established where you were as a school and why you contacted the CSC. Charlotte, could you maybe expand and explain the kind of support you received from us? And just about this first of all.
Yeah, so our previous Welsh lead actually started the support with CSC. So I know that she took part in the Continuum to Curriculum pilot, which she found very helpful. She also created a presentation to share the changes that had been made in our school. As part of that support, all teaching staff received training from CSC on pedagogy for teaching oracy strategies, which was really effective. We had support from CSC to conduct baseline listening to learners, which helped us to really see where our children were, what we were starting out on. And it was really helpful to get other eyes on that, I think. We also took part in professional development opportunities for staff. So we had members from CSE coming into school and updating their Welsh language skills.
Pete, as a class teacher, maybe it would be useful for our listeners to hear how you perceived the training that was provided and the support that was provided.
It was really helpful in terms of, I think the main thing was just simplifying the expectations. I think there's a lot of fear around teaching Welsh when you're not a fluent speaker yourself about what I should be teaching, what can I teach if I don't know the answer to questions. And a lot of the help that we had was about clarifying that playing games, using simple techniques, making sure that they're remembering vocabulary is all progression. So we had a whole range of different games that we tried out ourselves in the inset and kind of took the fear away, I guess, for some of us in terms of playing simple things with flashcards, disappearing words on the screen, filling the gaps, building sentence pyramids. That meant that we felt really equipped that there's so many different ways that we could teach the same thing. And I think it also reinforced the idea that you don't have to just teach something once, and if they didn't get it, you think, oh, well, that didn't really work, but we've got to move on. It was like, no, there's lots of different ways that you can do it again to get the repetition in there. And one of the main things we've then taken into our teaching, I think, is making sure that the children feel comfortable in the same way. So making sure that they have word mats in front of them when they are doing Welsh activities and Welsh lessons, so that they've got something they can refer to, and they don't have to have that panic or that block of, I don't know these words, I can't do this. Because they have got the skills in front of them, and the ones that are more confident then hopefully start not looking at the mat, or we start slowly taking those things away. But I think, making learning and teaching Welsh less scary was the main thing.
I think that's something that we really had to consider as well, that it wasn't cheating if we gave the children the Welsh with the translation underneath. It wasn't that the children needed that in order to build their language skills. And then, as you say, we could remove the translation when the children were confident in saying it. But the fact that they have a crib sheet that they can go to, we have that in every other lesson. But for some reason, we weren't using that or adopting that in Welsh. And we found that it's really enhanced the skills of the children, because they know that they can just go and check. They may know the answer to a question, but they can just check before the answer, and it's really developed the confidence.
Speaking about effective learners in Curriculum for Wales, that's a really important point, isn't it? That children learn to decide the support they need and to seek that support, but also have the confidence then to give it a go on their own. And Pete, you mentioned about feeling comfortable before, and I must admit that's really good to hear, because in a lot of work we do with schools, we think about actually teachers being comfortable in the first place to teach, because obviously we all have our different experiences with Welsh. Teachers also went to a cyfnod clo through a lockdown period, so we had to rekindle our skills of teaching Welsh. So yes, that's good to hear, because a big focus of our work with you was to give you guys the confidence, but also the resources and the support to enjoy the teaching of Welsh and be comfortable again with it. Now, in previous conversations, Pete and Charlotte and Rachel, you mentioned that apart from the insets that CSC provided, the training for planning and pedagogy for daily Welsh sessions, you then carried on with regular internal professional learning sessions where people shared practice. Could you expand on that, Pete, at all?
Yes, so to try and keep that momentum going, we had our own after-school insets where a few different teachers shared a game that they've tried in class that they thought have worked well and had a good reaction from their class. And we then added those onto a central drive across the school where we could dip in and steal each other's tools, basically, and say, oh, that worked well for that. And adapt it to your own class. A lot of the things work regardless of the age group as well, particularly as we're looking at just trying to build their confidence, like we said, they were applicable for all the age groups. So, for example, I led one activity where we did a cofiwch game, where it was a simple paragraph was written on the wall on one side of the room, and they have to, one person at a time has to go, remember as much as they can, and come back to the group and write it down. And it's just a way of a fun and physically active way of getting them to hold Welsh words in their head. And then you've got the opportunity afterwards to talk through how much did they actually understand, which words did they recognise, but at least even if they're just trying to spot spelling patterns or picking out one word at a time that they recognise, it's kind of fun ways of subliminally getting the Welsh language into their brains.
It's important to note that in the CSC, we never aim to be prescriptive in our support for schools, but instead we aim to work together with you to build on existing strengths already among your staff, but then also to develop a bespoke support to address those areas of improvement that we've identified together. Now, thinking about your teaching of daily Welsh sessions now, all of you, and going back to the time before you worked with the CSC, are there things you kept anyway that worked well for you? I remember you, Pete, mentioning you speak Spanish. I believe you might have had some course with the CSC to learn pedagogy for teaching French as well. I know that you, Rachel, have been in a Welsh sabbatical. So are there things that you do also that work quite well together with the suggested approaches we modeled for you? Pete, maybe if you start.
I think the main thing that think that is now a strength of our teaching Welsh is making it fun. And I think one of the biggest issues we had before was the reluctance from the children to engage, partly because they found it too challenging, but partly because there wasn't enough just fun in the lessons that they were doing. And I find now that the children are asking to do their Deg Bob Dydd, their daily Welsh. They're looking forward to the Welsh lessons that we do because they know that it involves lots of games. And so they see the Welsh lesson on that for that week, as a fun activity. And that's a massive game changer. So I think inserting as many games as possible into the things that we do. So, Rachel plans our Deg Bob Dydd activities. So maybe you can talk about the different games that we do.
Well, we do a whole range of games, but what I learned when I was on the sabbatical was children don't know what the words mean within the sentences. So breaking them down into individual sentence patterns, showing them that build means what, sit means how, and all these different things, just shows them where the sentences construct and how the words sit together. So before we start any Deg Bob Dydd every week, we concentrate on the sentence pattern that we're going to do and then build up the vocabulary based on that. And then the following week, we touch on the sentence pattern we learned the previous week before we introduce another one. And then the games that we do are a wide range of games, but it's always building upon the knowledge that they've previously got and then just taking one step forward. So rather than having lots and lots and lots of different sentence patterns every week, we concentrate mainly on one, but then use ones that we've had in previous weeks so that we can construct sentences, get them talking to each other. So the children don't know what's going to happen. And I think that's what makes it so interesting for them. They're excited to know whether they're playing Game Envoy, as we said before, or whether we are doing any of these other activities. We do Bertine Diflannu, all of these. They're just about competing against each other, using knowledge that they've got and using their word maps to help them as they go along. We don't allow them to be wrong. We're building confidence by always allowing them to be successful. And I think that's the main thing that's come from this is, if the teachers are successful and they know what they're doing with a crib sheet, because my job share Sarah will be the first to admit she's found what teaching Welsh challenging. But if we provide the crib sheet for the children, we've also got a crib sheet for the teachers. We don't allow anyone to fail, so everyone is successful, and that breeds success and enjoyment throughout the year group.
It's interesting to say that, because in the CSC we see Welsh development and oracy really as we learn Welsh together, children and staff and teachers, and the resources we provide are aimed at not just developing children's Welsh, but also teachers at Welsh. And if I say resource we provide, they are really templates that schools adapt them to work the best as they can. I'm pretty sure that by the time you've come back from sabbatical and you have now introduced all the ideas you learned there, what you do looks very different already than what you used to do half a year ago, which is great. But you as a staff have the strength and the understanding to understand what works and what doesn't. Charlotte, your colleagues have already spoken about how the children have changed their attitudes really to the Welsh, how they seem to be enjoying it. Could you speak from a whole school perspective, your impression of just at the moment the attitudes to the Welsh, and maybe not just the children, but also your colleagues, your staff?
Yeah, of course. The children have been really positive to the changes that we've put in place. Lots of comments about how they now enjoy the Deg Bob D's lessons. You can see that they're much more passionate about the Welsh language, and they're very keen and motivated to improve their own Welsh language. We've noticed attitudes changing massively, and from listening to learners, the confidence in the children has changed dramatically, really. We're noticing that they're willing to give things a go, even if they're not sure. They're willing to think about what they already know and use that to help them. I think Pete said earlier about the fear around Welsh language, and I feel that with lots of our children, that fear has been removed. They're willing to give it a go. They're not afraid of making mistakes. In terms of our teachers are more confident in delivering the Deg Bob D's sessions, our Welsh oracy sessions. They're much more confident in the planning side of it, what sentence patterns we're going to look at, what are we going to introduce, what do we need to revise. And I think even our teachers who are that entry level, they're giving it a go, and like Rachel said, using the resources they're able to support our children then. That's
Really good to know. One thing we are very much conscious of in the CSC, and you are at school as well, I'm sure, is that it's completely possible to have a lot of fun playing Welsh games and not learning actually that much Welsh, which I'm sure is not happening in your school. And I'm actually witness to the incredible progress you have made in Welsh oracy, because I supported your previous Welsh teacher and yourself in repeat listening to learners, where we assessed same patterns over a period of time to see the impact it had on children of all abilities in the different classes. But maybe could you speak a little bit more, Charlotte, about the impact on the progress of the children, under the skills?
Of course. So we currently repeat our listening to learners every term, and we find that to be really effective in monitoring children's progress with their Welsh oracy skills. We have found that the children are far more confident in their Welsh language skills, and also by using our listening to learners framework, we can clearly see that children are moving from our reds, so they haven't really understood the question, into our green category. And what's been really lovely this the last time that we did listening to learners is seeing really a sea of green over those listening to learner frameworks. There was one category in particular that took us really by surprise is them asking us questions. And at one point I couldn't keep up with typing the questions that they were giving me. They were just flooding us with all of these questions to ask, which was really, really lovely. We're finding that the older children are able to switch between language patterns more easily, whereas before they were taking a lot more time to get the correct sentence pattern. That seems to be becoming much more easier for them. And also using the positive and negative patterns, we're noticing a massive improvement in that they can actually use both instead of just what we found before, being able to use the positive pattern.
Excellent. And what you just said, thank you, really reminded me of a meeting we had recently in your class with the secondary school, where very kindly the secondary subject leader shared their experience of your last year's year sixes who've come up now, and she commented on the strength of these children's skills. Interestingly, also, you had a focus on oracy. She also commented on the writing and the reading, which is nice to know because the resource and the way, the approach you use with sentence builders and the oracy activities also develops the reading on the side. So yeah, thank you for sharing this. Well, we've heard a lot now about where you've come from, the support you've had and your own input into this, and how you have developed a more independent model of professional development, having expertise come from the Welsh sabbatical with Rachel here, but also sharing from every class. What are your next steps now? Where are you going from here? Maybe if you want to start, Charlotte.
Of course. So really the next steps for me as Welsh lead is to continue to work alongside teachers to develop Welsh lessons that link to our context. We've had some real successes this year in developing Cynefin, and maybe Pete could talk about that.
Yeah, I think part of this whole improvement is the fact that the children are more interested in being Welsh, and to do with lessons like actually understanding what the Eisteddfod is about and the history behind it. When we were teaching about World War II and about evacuees leaving London, Rachel found a video online that was all in Welsh about experiences of people who had been evacuated to Wales. And although they didn't understand most of the Welsh in the video, we watched it with subtitles, and they felt their personal connection to the stories and realised, that there are people out there who do speak fluent Welsh, who live their lives through the medium of Welsh. And I think there were a few children that got to the end of the video and were applauding and, even were quite emotional about the stories they'd heard. So it was so nice to see them actually engaging with this content. One of the things we've also been doing is having a tracker oesnos. So as part of our weekly lessons, Rachel's put in a different song every week, and we use the same sort of sentences to get them to talk about their opinion about the song, which has been nice that they felt empowered that they can do that, giving their opinion. But it's also then the fact that we showed them a clip from last year's Eisteddfod, where they heard one of the songs being played and they recognised it and they immediately started dancing along. And it was a little moment where they could picture themselves attending something like an Eisteddfod. And I said to them, even if you don't end up speaking fluent Welsh when you're older, you can still go, you can engage in these things, you can be proud of your culture. And you can see the interest in wanting to learn about the language alongside that increasing.
We've also found as well, haven't we, that when we have the opportunity to play songs within our class, our children are now requesting Welsh language songs as well as English language songs, which has just been incredible for us to be part and witness that, because they're singing along, they're picking up the lyrics as we go along. And we also do bits about finding out where the bands come from, a few fun facts about them as well. So we keep to the same pattern, but the kids are getting it and they don't understand that it is Cynefin, but it's all to do with that. And it's been a really positive experience for the children and for us as well, because we found out loads as well.
Absolutely. Another next step. So we've spoken about developing Welsh lessons that link to our context and having a really heavy Cynefin element from that. A next step for us will also be to adapt our listening to learner framework. So we'll be looking at adding in patterns now which have been taught in class, just to extend that. And really excitingly, we are now looking at Welsh reading. So our support from CSC has not stopped. We are continuing now with adding in Welsh literature and really promoting that. So already this year we've had an inset from CSC to develop our whole class reading techniques for Welsh reading and looking at phonics, and all of the approaches that we've developed align with our current English whole class reading sessions, which has really worked for us.
It's been really good just in the last section to hear about how you think about developing all elements of Welsh, both the Welsh language and the Welsh culture, and the appreciation of both, and how all of this works together to just, bring out the Welshness in our children. So it's been lovely chatting to you. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch.
Diolch am wrando ar y benod hon o Sgwrs. Cofiwch ein dilyn ar Twitter a Facebook, tanysgrifio ein sianel YouTube, ymuno yn cymunedau ar ein gwefan a darllen ein bwletin ysgolion wythnosol am y newyddion diweddaraf. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sgwrs. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, join our online communities via our website, and read our weekly school bulletin for the latest news. Hwyl am y tro. Bye for now.